Right now. All right, so welcome everyone to the open forum for the Trees Around the Globe student research campaign. And I'm super excited that all of you are here. I see lots and lots of people here from many different countries, and this is a little different this time than what we normally do. We usually have, um, a more formal presentation from someone, whether it be a researcher or professional in the field or a student or someone from the campaign. Today is going to be an open forum, so it's going to be very informal. And basically, what that means is we have team members here who are going to be on talking about off and on about some of the things that are part of the campaign that will, assist you in, potentially doing student research projects that are aligned to the campaign. But one of our main focuses is that we really want you to have the opportunity to talk with each other about what you might be able to do for student research projects that span different GLOBE schools across different GLOBE countries. And that's our main goal here. There's no set agenda. We're going to be introducing things now and then. But what I also want to just quickly pop up here is, we do have a campaign team for the Trees Around the Globe student research campaign. And as you know, since it's called Trees Around the Globe, our main protocol that we do, and I know a lot of the students that are here with us from Georgia are so new to this, you don't really know much about the GLOBE protocols. So basically, our main focus is tree height. And there's a GLOBE protocol that allows you to measure tree height very simply using some handheld instruments. Okay, and I'll take you to the website in a couple minutes just so you can check it out, just see what it's about. But then we also have one protocols that are part of the campaign, like on land cover and greenings, green up, green down. So it's looking at the seasonality of plants and trees every year. So then there's lots of other measurements that you can do as part of the campaign. But we'll get to that in a second. I wanted to bring that up because I saw a note from one of my Georgia colleagues that Georgia students aren't familiar at all with the protocols yet. So, hopefully we'll make that a little easier today. So I'm Brian Campbell. I'm at the NASA Wallops Flight Facility in Wallops Island, Virginia. We also have online Dorian Janney from NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. Peter Falcon, NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California. It's super early there. It's just after 6 o'clock a.m. Christopher Schumann from NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, Dr. Christopher Schumann, I should say. He is a researcher at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. He is the subject matter expert as part of our campaign. And then we have Peter Nelson, who's also a subject matter expert from Oregon State University, and he is also the land cover lead for the NASA Globe Observer Citizen Science Project. So that's our campaign team. So once again, today, what we're going to talk about is this open forum. We're going to have some discussions informally. But first, I don't want to take out from that the time that we need for that. But as you know, we also have a webinar like this tomorrow evening. Well, actually, for some of you, it might be really early in the morning, so that's why you're here today. But we have one tomorrow. It's going to be the same format. It's going to be tomorrow, December 4th, which is 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, or it's actually December 5th, 1 a.m. UTC. So if you can join, that would be great. If you're here now, that's awesome. So, we're going to be recording both of these and putting these in the archives on our page. First off, I'm going to end this show and I'm going to stop my share, but I'm going to share my screen because I want to show you quickly a couple websites here, the GLOBE websites and some of the things you can do. So I'm just going to show you right now the GLOBE website. All right, there we go. So you should be able to see the website right here. And we're going to go right here. So what I'm going to show you is how to get to our campaign website. So you should be seeing this is the main landing page for GLOBE, and it's globe.gov, G-O-V. And if you want to do GLOBE, you see these bars here. If you hit do GLOBE and you scroll down to measurement campaigns and you move over to field measurement campaigns, you click on that. And once that loads up, what you'll see is the first one here, Trees Around the Globe campaign. So you can click on that, and this will take you directly to our campaign website. So on here, the first page, the landing page, what you can read here is all about the campaign and why we're doing it, why it's important, and some of the measurements that you can take, and some of the NASA resources that we have. So, and also there's a place where you can officially join the campaign. It's called the campaign community page, where you just simply click on that and you click join community and you are a member. Well, I think the most important page here, especially for the students in Georgia, as well as, others, of course, is how do you become part of the campaign? Well, what you do is you start collecting the data, and, and you come to the webinars, collect the data. So basically what you have here is you have the protocols that are part of the campaign, where it's tree height, and as I mentioned, green up, green down, land cover classification. We added carbon cycle in here, which is a little more complicated than the other ones, but we added it in here. And then we also have lots of other measurements that you can do as part of the campaign, like air temperature, surface temperature, soil temperature. So, you have all these different measurements that you can take. And when you do this, all your information, once you submit it, all your protocol data, once you submit it, gets uploaded into the GLOBE database. And I'll show you that in a little bit, as far as how to go onto the visualization page of things. But with the campaign, basically what we want you to do is we want you to be able to take the data using the protocols, okay? And we understand that sometimes it takes a little effort, with classrooms and teachers, and there's lots of things, lots of other things that classrooms are doing. But what you can do is you can take these measurements, and then you can, learn what exactly the measurements you're taking are telling you about your local environment. And, our main goal here is for you to use your data, and then take your data, make sense of it, and then develop research projects based upon the data you take in your local environment, and also data that you can grab from other schools, and citizen science data as well on the GLOBE website. And I'll show you a little bit how to do that. But Dorian, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but if you would, could you talk a little bit about the guiding investigative questions, and what these are, before Dorian jumps in? What these guiding investigative questions are is these are questions that we've developed, and these aren't all the questions you can think of, but they're questions we developed so that you can explore different scenarios, different questions, in order to understand, what your data is telling you. So these questions can be a research project. These questions can just help you design research project, but they're things to think about and explore while you're taking the data, while you're making sense of the data. And Dorian, would you like for me to share my screen, or would you like to share your screen?
Hey, if you'll share your screen, that would be wonderful, Brian. Thank you so much. So right now I'm sitting here in my home office, which I particularly like because I have two windows, and I looking outside. And one of the things I'm seeing as I look outside are lots and lots of trees, lots of different kinds of trees. And I really, really like this app because it has given me a chance, or actually this tool on this app. We call the Globe Observer the app, and then the four different tools that you can use, such as tree height, the tools. And I've planted a couple of new trees, and it's been really neat to go out once a month and just get a feel for how well they're growing. So some of the things that you could do with collecting your tree height measurements, in addition to using some other GLOBE protocols, and of course doing some old-fashioned research, getting in there and learning about, using some of your online resources and your print resources, talking to some specialists. There's lots of things you can do to learn about the trees in your environment, get a better understanding of them. So here are a couple of sample investigative questions. These are not limited. These are just to get you started brainstorming about some of the things that you might want to learn about the trees in your environment. So you might want to find out, where are trees growing and why are they there? Who planted them in the first place? The house that I live in happens to be on farmland, and there was only one big tree when they put the housing development in. So kind of interesting to get a feel for who planted the different trees here. What can measuring tree height tell us about our local ecosystem? You know, you're going to find out a lot by getting a feel for how quickly or how slowly your trees are growing. And of course, what kind of trees you have, and getting an understanding of that local ecosystem. What is the relationship between tree height and land cover? What are the tools for measuring trees and the errors between them? You could kind of, you know, make it an engineering challenge and put an engineering slant to the research that you're doing. What kinds of trees are growing in my location? For me personally, that will be the quest that I'm going to be doing this year. I want to try to find out, as I look out here, like I say, I see a good 10 different kinds of trees. I want to find out what kinds there are. I even want to find out what the next question says, are the trees in my area native or invasive? Because I know in our area, we happen to have a lot of invasive species. They planted them maybe because they grew quickly, or someone brought them over and thought, oh, wouldn't this be nice? But sometimes they're not a good thing to have. So I really want to learn about that. What are some of the barriers for comparing GLOBE tree height data to the ISAT-2 tree height data? So Brian's already told us a little bit about how to do that. He has a tutorial, and you can find out how you can compare the trees that you're measuring to the measurements that are being taken by the ISAT-2 campaign. What is the distribution of tree height measurements from around the world each month? What a cool thing, you know, to be able to find out in Georgia and in Pakistan and in Argentina. What kinds of trees do you have there? How do they differ from the types of trees that I have here in the Maryland area? How much water do the trees in my area require per month? So as I learn about the different types of trees that I have here in my yard, I also want to find out about how much water. I happen to live in a state where we get about 4 to 5 inches, sorry, but inches is kind of the way my brain still thinks, 4 to 5 inches of precipitation per month. And they're predicting with climate change, we're going to start to get more. So I'm also interested in finding out with the trees in my yard, how are they going to respond to more precipitation? And then you can also look, here's another one that's kind of an engineering challenge. What are the errors measuring tree heights using handheld clinometers versus using the NASA Globe Observer Trees tool? If you have more questions, more ideas for questions, please throw some of them in there in the chat window, and we'd love to add them to these sample guiding investigative questions. It just is a nice way to start off by having some of these to look at, and sometimes it helps you kind of then generate some more ideas. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much, Dorian. So yeah, so as Dorian mentioned, you know, these are great, you know, some guiding investigative questions, great tools to help you, you know, understand, you know, what your data is telling you. You know, like I said, some of these questions can be research project in their own, or they can just be ways for you to explore the data that you're collecting or that you're looking at on the GLOBE website. We had a couple questions in the chat. One is, how can we insert our data? Once you learn how to do the protocols, it's pretty easy when you go in and add the protocols. You know, just, you know, you go and you submit your data, you know, to the GLOBE website, and you know, that's, you know, if you go on the GLOBE website, there is tutorials on how to do that. That you can check that out. Another question is, can we make research about trees in our school? And that's absolutely yes. If you do that research about trees in your school, and the secondary question is, you know, how can we send it to you? So basically, you know, you wouldn't send it to us in the campaign. You can send it to us, you know, to take a look at it and, you know, help you out, you know, if you're having some problems, or if you just want to take us to take a look at it, that would be fine. But if you're doing research, and you want to, you know, submit it to somewhere that, you know, that you will get recognition, or, you know, as part of a, as part of, let's say, sorry, my thing froze a little here. All right, so, or part of a competition, you can submit it to the IVSS. So let me show you here quickly what that is. So if you go to news and events, here, and then you go to the event section, and then it says Virtual Science Symposia. Okay, then you can look here at the website, and here you can go into the 2020 International Virtual Science Symposia, and this will tell you all about, you know, what the symposia is about, when the projects are due. So you can, all this information is here, and it tells you, you know, what you need to submit it, how you do it. So yeah, so once you figure out, you know, what your research projects are going to be, you know, feel free to, you know, ping folks in the campaign, or if you have other, you know, colleagues in Globe schools around the world, you can check that out as well. And if you could mute your microphones, please, and so we don't have much feedback. A couple of other questions came up here. What kind of resources do we need to make the trees to grow faster? Well, that's a tough question. You know, yeah, that it's, you know, water, soil, you know, photosynthetic, you know, processes, things like that. So yeah, that's kind of a tough question there. But yeah, that's just a natural environment question there. Another thing is, what can you say about the wildfire in Brazil? Does it affect our planet or not? I'm not sure if that is an actual question to us, or if that was one based on the question that I said, have any of you students online thought about particular research projects aligned to the Trees campaign? So hopefully some of you have thought that a little bit, and we can open it up a little bit. Peter, first, before we open it up, Peter Falcon, can you quickly talk about, you know, why, you know, from your experience that you've seen in your travels with the GLOBE program and NASA, you know, why, you know, how important it is for GLOBE students from different countries to interact with each other, or even GLOBE, you know, students from the same schools to interact with each other to help develop these research projects?
Of course. Thanks, Brian. As Brian mentioned, I'm from NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and I do Earth Science Communication. So I'm also a master trainer and partner. And I've been very fortunate to travel to a lot of different places, a lot of GLOBE schools, and work with a lot of teachers and students. And part of our job is to help facilitate, you know, these partnerships and these collaborations amongst the different schools and the 122 different countries that we have. And from my, you know, from my travels, I've learned a lot of things with the GLOBE program and with the GLOBE app. Students can really learn not only about themselves, about the scientific method, but also learn about each other's cultures in a way as they collaborate, as they create those partnerships. They can also kind of learn about each other's languages. That's another benefit of working and collaborating with other students of similar age and from other countries. And you get to learn a little bit about each other's traditions as you share, not only learning about science, but also learning about each other as well. And you get a better worldly view of what's going on with our planet, because now you don't see just your local region, but you also get a worldly view by learning about what's going on with other countries, with other ecosystems, with other environments. And you get to really learn about each other's resources as well, learning that perhaps the things that you have in your school, other schools don't have, and you get to learn about that as well. So really, if you have any questions about how to partner with other schools, or maybe you're interested in that as a teacher, by all means, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to help facilitate some of those partnerships. I know a lot of active schools and really great teachers from many countries. And if you're interested in working with another country, I will be very happy to kind of help facilitate that. And hopefully you can kind of take it from there and work with each other. But that's one of the benefits about the GLOBE program, about working with citizen scientists, with students from other countries, is not only learning about the scientific method, about what's going on with just your region, but learning about what's going on with the world as well. And I will put my email address in the chat box. So if you have any questions or want to work with another school and I can help in any way, by all means, please reach out to me. Okay, thanks, Brian.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter. So, yeah, so, what the purpose of, as I mentioned, the purpose of this open forum is to kind of get this ball rolling into, how you can interact with each other. We want schools from all across the GLOBE community, across the world, to be able to interact with each other. So, does anybody have anything specific they would like to talk about? And what you can do is, if you go ahead and, you can unmute and hopefully be able to, we'll be able to do this with some semblance of order. But if anybody would like to talk about, a research project or some research that they've been thinking about to get it started as to, maybe some other schools might want to participate in doing, kind of the same research that you're doing, then you can, use the data from, all your locations to create, could be a, collaborative research project. So anybody out there would like to discuss, please don't be shy. It's all good. We're going to be informal here.
Should we discuss about all these kind of trees all around the world, or what topic?
Yeah, any research topic that you can think of. It doesn't have to be just trees in your environment only, but if you take measurements in your environment, you can do comparisons to, tree height in, other biomes or environments around the world. If you take tree observations, or as I mentioned, there's other protocols like land cover and then greenings as well. If you take observations of those on a particular day, you can actually find other schools around the world who have taken data on that exact same day, and then you can do some comparisons and develop some projects that way as well. So yeah, so it's, as I mentioned, it's an open forum, so we can discuss anything any type of measurement related to the campaign. Anything that you have in mind. If you have ideas, if you want to just mention ideas and have other people talk about it, that's what we're here for today.
So I'm wondering if you could say the topic and we all can discuss about it. For example, any topic you want.
Well, the topic is trees around the globe. So yeah, so tree height is the main purpose of the campaign. It's the main protocol measurement. So, as Dorian mentioned, we have all those guiding investigative questions that are all part of the campaign. So any of those could be topics. So we want you to be able to figure out what type of research projects can you get from looking at the height of trees in your area, by looking at land cover, by looking at greenings, when the leaves and the buds come on the trees, when the leaves and the buds come off the trees. So anything in related, because informal means that we don't have any specific questions for you. The students and teachers are, they come with ideas and some questions to discuss.
Hello, Brian.
Hello, Umar.
Yes, I want to ask that what will be the result of us that we will collect data all over the world, and if we manage to collect from all the trees over the world, what would be the result of this?
Does anybody want to help discuss that question?
This is Bo. Can you hear me?
Yep. Hi, Bo.
Hi. I started something last year, and so I'll talk to the question and sort of talk to the height at the same time because I'm doing research because of it. So last year I started collecting acorns because I found out that Ireland was regrowing their forests and it was historically important. So after the trip to Ireland, I started hand collecting acorns at the Church of the Chimes, which is near my house. It turned out that I named and adopted 3 redwood trees that were sick from the drought, and several 100-year-old oak trees. And I could use the Observer app on my phone to look at the height. now it turns out there's a drawing book that's written from the point of view of a squirrel named Roscoe that fell out of a tree in Santa Barbara, which is not far from my house and has been having raging fires in Goleta again, or Goleta, as you know. And we've had a lot of fires in the last year and a half in Southern California, one that closed the 405 freeway. And now we're worried about a mudslide coming down the 405, which affects the wildlife passage and some of the research on saving the mountain lions. So I live in a rural, urban megacity. A lot of you can relate to that. But I created a urban kitchen forest. So I started growing acorns on my porch with a CD rack and took cups and started from the growing process, filled them with dirt and hung little paper cuts cut in half into like a forest nursery on my back porch. Out of that, this year I started collecting more acorns. It went really well. The kids were able to measure water and work in the elementary classroom with water. And we began to learn now with this drawing book about the red squirrel that's almost extinct. That's a famous squirrel, looks like a little elf. It's red with white chest, has little elf ears, and it's almost extinct, but it's an arboreal squirrel. So the tree height has to do with the health of the forest, the canopy that gives us shade, the ability to grow certain plants, like you'll find there's a thing called shade coffee now in agroforestry. There's a thing called shade chocolate, because I work with chocolate. There's a lot of research about the workers are healthier, the plants are healthier, and now with this red squirrel, so that Roscoe and Rosie the red can talk to one another, an American gray squirrel was brought to the UK and to Ireland, and that squirrel has taken over, and there's total imbalance. So now we're learning about restoring wildlife and real wilding. So there's a bunch of different things about healthy people in nature, but healthy wildlife, but saving the birds, saving the workers, saving the plants, being able to understand the canopy, and those lead back to oxygen and other things that have to do with the weather and have to do with being able to have a healthy biosphere. So that was some of what I've gotten into, and I didn't expect to go there. And now the final thing is the Roscoe book has a tree lesson that I can send you. I can send you PDFs of the tree lesson, which is about triangles for elementary school kids who live in an urban environment. It's really great because you could be in a refugee camp teaching GLOBE, or you could be in a classroom and you could be looking at triangles, and then you could use the Earth Observer app. And so it's really fun. And kids like it.
You mean that it's about environment, that how we can improve our environment?
You want to talk to that, Brian?
Yes, yeah. And before I talk to that, Bo, could you send me that PDF, and then we will put it up on the campaign website if that's okay with you, because I think that's a great resource for the people to be able to use and be able to look at.
Yeah, it's done by a woman who used to work with Disney, and it's terrific because it's a drawing book, and maybe a child maybe isn't into science yet, but they could get into science this way and have a lot of fun. It's called See What You're Looking At, and I'd be happy to send it.
Excellent, thank you.
That's really neat.
Go ahead, Dorian.
I was just going to say that was really neat. What a great explanation of a way in which these data could be used. That was just fascinating. Thank you.
I have one other piece. This year, it branched out on its own. There were fires at Paramount Ranch, which is where a lot of movies had been shot. And they had a big fire. They have a 300-year-old oak that the Green Man from the Renaissance Fair has sent back to the people, to the artist Brian Frond, who did Dark Crystal, because their oak trees are sick in England. And so I now know that the West Coast does have other oak trees, not just the little coastal oak, which looks like a little oval when you draw an eye shape. But I actually have an 80-year-old woman named Nellie who lives in an area impacted by the fires, Thousand Oaks, and she collected me these round, large acorns that are black oaks. So I'm understanding the biosphere in California is very diverse, And some of the other thing that I wanted to say about food is acorns were the natural food of the indigenous tribes in California. And I'd learned about them my whole life. I'd never done anything that involves me in them. We create parks now to the baskets. The indigenous tribes used to keep the acorns in to store them. And their freeway overpasses on the way to San Bernardino. But I didn't have any involvement. I knew there was dancing. I knew there were people by the coast and there were people on the islands. But now I had something that really made something come alive that was very natural and indigenous to California. And some of the acorns are not growing because climate change has affected them, and they have bugs, because bugs grow fast in the overly hot environment, and it's affecting our trees and the food for the different animals. And I really and bringing animals into the city. So I wanted to say, like, are other people seeing that their acorns are sick? I have a bunch of them growing now in little bags underneath my shelf. And what I want to say is the whole growth process has come alive for me. And the speed at which the trees could replace the ones that burned down seems to be very important to California and clean air. So it goes in a big cycle back to weather, and it goes into the food chain, because I'm having the acorns bleached this year to make acorn flour. They make acorn flour and they use it in the Korean world. And there's a strong connection with my high school to Seoul. And there's a large Korean population here. So I'm actually have a chemist who's also leaching the acorns for their tannin so we could make acorn flour. And we've come full circle to the idea that these trees are plentiful, and I've found out where I can collect in the city. It's a very wonderful, eye-awakening project, and I welcome anybody into it that wants to play.
Thank you, Bo. That's a lot of great information. You know, what she mentioned there is, you know, she's looking at things literally as small as acorns, that depending upon the health of those acorns can help you understand, you know, the health of the tree, the health of the environment, how much oxygen, you know, is being produced via photosynthesis in the trees, how much carbon dioxide is being pulled in or stored by these trees. So, you know, I don't want, with the purpose of this today is, you know, we don't want you to have to come up with a research project right now at this moment. What we're doing here is, since it's an open forum, we're just talking about ideas that can be used as potential research projects. So, you know, it's anything, you know, tree related, anything land cover related. I see that Peter Nelson, Peter Nelson, part of our team, is online. Peter, sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot. I know it's super early there as well, where you are in Oregon. Is there anything you'd like to mention as this, you know, as we're talking about, you know, students, you know, coming up with ideas for research projects?
Yeah, that's a good question, Brian. So I like to look at trees from space. And so I spend a lot of time using some of the various NASA tools to look at how green is my area. And I'll highlight here that one of the tools that I really like to use, that I've been using quite often, is actually one that is available inside of the Globe Observer app, but it's also available on the web. And it's this really interesting tool called Worldview. And this is something that allows you to go in and actually start looking at some of the things that other people have been talking about. And what you actually are able to do is go in and actually add in additional layers. And so there was a question about, you know, where are fires happening right now in the world? And so you can go into this website and you can actually look at where the fires and the thermal anomalies, in other words, the hotspots, are located. And when you do that, you can actually turn on that layer, and all of a sudden, you have the ability to start looking at where fires have actually occurred, where hotspots are located around the world, and be able to start looking at all of these things. And the neat thing is, at the very bottom here, you actually have this time slider bar. So you get to time travel backwards and forwards and look at what the world was like at different times. And so the key here is, you know, we were talking about California just a moment ago. And for instance, you can see right here, back in 2007 in November, there is a wildfire right in the middle of this. And you can tell that it's a fire because of the color of the smoke, the location, the fact that there isn't any other clouds around. And part of what we're seeing here is this green that's there is actually the trees, the oak trees that we're just getting talked about. And the great thing about this is you can zoom out and you can get a very global view of things. And so you get to not only see what's happening in your area, but then you can also compare it to others. And this can be really helpful when you are curious about how have things been changing in my area. You can pull up this information and you can just flip through the time slider bar and you can actually see how things have changed. I chose in November, which is pretty cloudy here, but if we go back a little bit, all of a sudden we can start to see the green areas of the United States, and you can also start to see the Amazon, and you can also start to see all the fires that were happening in 2010 in this area. And so I really like to use this tool as a way of getting in and looking at information. And like I said, you can get in here and you can actually find all kinds of information. And there is this vegetation layer that that might actually help you look at how fast are your plants growing in your area by looking at something like this this layer. And so, you know, there's a lot of data inside of here. But this right here tells us where the trees are the most productive. And you can see as we're looking at the Amazon here in the middle of South America, you can see how much more productive, how much more photosynthesis, how much more trees are happening in that area compared to some of the more desert areas of South America, for instance. So, you know, sometimes you can't get out and you can't actually measure trees, but there's lots of NASA tools that allow us to go in and start exploring the different patterns of green that make up the Earth, which I think is pretty interesting, just looking at these patterns and trying to understand why do we have the patterns that we do. And a lot of that goes back to that photosynthesis question, and how much photosynthesis is happening in an area. So I wanted to highlight this really neat tool because whether you inside of the Globe Observer app, you can click on the Show Me NASA Data, and you'll end up at this location, or you can go in and just explore it yourself. And like I said, there's a lot of NASA data that you can actually get there. And they have the really neat tool called Events, which will take you through and show you some of the different wildfires, for instance, that are happening. And those wildfires are because trees are located there. So that was one of the tools that I wanted to highlight in particular about one of the NASA tools that I use to look at trees around the globe. Thanks, Brian.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Peter. Yeah, NASA Worldview is a treasure trove of information of, you know, looking at the Earth from space. And as Peter mentioned, he just mentioned a few of the things that you can do, but, you know, some of the most important ones were the ones he mentioned, looking at the vegetation, the forest fires. And, you know, I want to you know, mention a couple things in the chat. We had some people just throwing in their questions, and you know, once again, I'm not sure if they're questions for us, but what I think they are great research type questions. You know, for instance, Future Business School mentioned, in which case is it necessary to cut down a tree? That can be a research question based upon the information that you get from the trees in your local environment. Another one is, how can people choose trees for furniture? You know, do they use, you know, the sustainable wood type thing? You know, how is, you know, what type of trees are good for furniture? When is it proper to cut down trees to make furniture? Things like that. We had another question. What can we do in order to prevent frequented forest fires? That's another great question. So that's great that these questions are coming in, and these are ones that you might consider when doing research, when doing your student research. These type of questions are some things that you can potentially answer when you have a combination of the data you're collecting and the resources, like Peter mentioned, like NASA Worldview, which I put in here as a link here. It's worldview.earthdata.nasa.gov, and it'll take you to where Peter just was. But then also, let me mention here. Let me just pop in here, and Peter has a link there as well about some of the resources. But I'm going to share my screen because a lot of you might not know how to actually go find some data that you might want to use for that. So there's two different ways to do it. So if you go over here to Globe Data, we're going to go to Visualize Data. There's two, the Visualize Data and Retrieve Data. I'm going to show you the Visualize Data right now. Okay, Visualize Data. So what you're going to do is you're going to enter the visualization system on the Globe program page. And since we're talking tree height, I'm going to show you this. If you look here on the left side, there's this little layer button here, and you can see my mouse on top of it. You click that, and to find tree height, you go into Biosphere, and then Biometry Tree Heights. And let's do photos. We're going to look at photos. So you'll see up here that what's going to happen is I'm going to click on Tree Photos, and then I'm going to hit Submit. And it'll automatically default to 1 year worth of tree photos. And you can see that is a lot. There are a lot of tree photos that you can choose from. You can also do tree data, but first with the tree photos, if you happen to have collected tree height data on a particular day, you can go up here where it says measurements and you click on the, oh, sorry, I have to go over here first where it says 1 day. I'm going to click on 1 day. I'm going to update. And these are the tree observations that have come in. And when you see the pictures, these pictures came in from the NASA Globe Observer, which is a citizen science app that you can do on your mobile device. And one of the important parts of that is you take a picture of the tree you're taking the height of, and then it'll get uploaded to the Globe database. So this happens to be the measurements that came in on 12/3, okay? So we're going to let's just switch to a different day. If we go like to 12/1, click 12/1, and then you hit the little update button. And these are all the tree height measurements that came in on 12/1 on December 1st. And then you can go, let's go even further back. Let's just go back to, let's say, July. Let's say July 6th. Let's try, that didn't look like there's one there. So if you go to some of July, that looks like some aren't popping up right now, but you know, that happens. Just takes a little while. But what you want to do here, if you want to look at like a year's worth of data, you can click on 1 year and you click update, and then you'll get that map that came on before. So yeah, it takes a little while to load up. So what you can do is I'm going to jump back here to the tree information, the layers. Let me cancel that, sorry. I'm going to go to the layers, back to the biosphere. And we're going to add the tree height information. I have to see the photos popped up now. If you go to tree height, I'm going to get rid of the photos. I'm just going to do the tree height. And what you're going to see is you're going to see all these observations pop up. Now these are a combination of the student tree height data that was put on from the regular Globe website, and then also the NASA Globe Observer. So if you happen to, be in one of these countries and you want to see where the data is coming from, let's say, for instance, let's just go quickly to, let's go to Spain, okay? So if you want to see, what the data was taken in Spain, what data was taken in Spain, you can click on one of these. And what happens here is this little measurement bar pops up. It tells you what the tree height was and where it's located. You can look at how many data counts there were, site info, and if it happens to be a photo, there's a photo there. You can click on the photo and you can see what type of tree was observed. So that's one way that you can go and take a look at some of the Globe data. You can do that with land cover. You can do that with any of the protocols. But you can also see your own data. So if you collected data on a certain day you can find that data. If you want to look to see what other data was collected on the same day you collected the data, you can look that up as well. So yeah, so this is a super easy way to do that. There's also I'm going to click out of the Viz one. There's also the Advanced Data Access tool. And what it does is it generates a spreadsheet, what's called a CSV file, and you can enter it. And what you can do is you enter this and you select what protocols you like. And for instance, here's tree height. So we're going to add that to the filter. We're going to set the date range. We're just going to make it a short date range so it won't take too long to load. So we'll just do it from there to there. You add it to the filter. You can apply the filter. And then it'll come up in the middle. If it filters the results, obtain measurement data. And for the period of July 9th of 2019 through December 3rd of 2019, there are approximately 4,700 tree height measurements taken at 2,142 locations. And then I won't do all this, but you can download the measurement data, and then it'll tell you where all the data came from, what the tree height observations were, what the measurements were. Some of them will tell you what type of trees. If the students identified what trees they were measuring, that'll be all in that information as metadata. So you can really see a lot of data there. So let me stop sharing here. Sorry, I went through that pretty quickly, but this is being recorded so everybody can see. In the questions here, sorry, in the chat, yes, Angie Rizzi mentioned that there is another tool called MyNASA Data, which has a lot of historical data on vegetation index and normalized difference of vegetation index. So yeah, so that's another great tool, and the link is there. It's mynasadata.larc. It's based at Langley Research Center in Virginia as well. So you can go check that out. That's another really great resource to look at the data.
Can you hear me, Brian? This is Angie.
I can. Go right ahead.
Okay. I have a lot of background noise where I am, so if it sounds bad, let me know. But so on MyNASA Data, those data are not up to date like Worldview. Right now we have everything up through the end of 2018. But the beautiful thing about it is you can put in a particular location or a region, and you can get those historical data. You can find, we have lots of things about deforestation and land cover, and you can find maybe a place where there was an event, and you can download those data. You can see it as a map. You can see it as a graph, or you can download the data, and it's very good for giving you kind of a historical context for what you're looking at. So one of the research ideas that I have would be if you found an area where there was perhaps a fire or some other form of deforestation, even if you don't live in the area, if someone else is entering tree height data, you may be able to see if there is some recovery going on in that area or not, or if the land cover is even beginning to change due to that. So I can share the screen and show it if anybody is interested, and if not, you can check it out at the link.
Yeah, go ahead and do that, Angie. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so here's the MyNASA Data website. And if you go here and click, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, if you click on Visualize Data, you can pull up, it's organized by sphere, just like GLOBE. And there are also GLOBE connections on this website as well, which is a nice thing because you can find different activities and protocols that would relate. So if you wanted to pull up the monthly leaf area index, let's say, and you can select, oh look, this one's even up through May of 2019. That's nice. Let me zoom out a little so you can see it better. Then you can see a map of this leaf area index, okay? But you can also, say, zoom in on a particular area, okay, and get additional information, or you can do a line plot. Okay, and we have a legend up here at the top that tells you what the units are. This happens to be dimensionless. There's actually a whole mini lesson out here about why it's a dimensionless number. So, you know, just here, I can also change to the NDVI. So, and this is just the visualization part. This is a different data set here. But there are also all kinds of lessons and mini lessons if you want to build some background knowledge or learn some more about the phenomenon that you're trying to look at. So I will also show you if I went out into biosphere. Oops, sorry, that's not what I meant to do. That there are globe connections in the biosphere. So you can see how these historical data can relate to some, look, got your campaign right here, and how GLOBE relates to these data, or how these data relate to what you're doing in GLOBE. So it's worth exploring, and it's a great way to kind of enhance and inform what you're doing.
Thank you, Angie. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's such a great resource, MyNASA data. So there's lots of, it's one of the, you know, a great group of resources that you students can use. We had a really cool thing mentioned by Jasna out of Croatia, that her students explored invasive species in local environment, and you know they were collaborating with students from different locations in order to do this. So yeah, that's just one way to do that. Yeah, I see. This is cool. I see lots of other cool questions popping up. How much was Amazon rainforest damage, and what consequences will it have? So yeah, so there's lots of great questions in here that are, you know, potentially you know, research projects. Does anybody else like to you know, jump in and mention anything as part of this open forum?
Hey, Brian, this is Peter. You know,
Peter.
I would like to mention to address Nana's question, we have a fire ecologist that's going to be presenting in a future webinar. That would be a great question to ask that female scientist about the fires in the Amazon.
Hey, and Dorian's here. When I was listening to Angela, I thought, wow, you know, another really good use of data would be to, you know, to access the global precipitation measurement data. So I stuck a link up there so that people can see how easy it is to get your monthly or your seasonal precipitation data anywhere in the world. You just enter your longitude and latitude, and that way you could take a look at how does the amount of precipitation that an area receives impact the kind of trees and the growth of trees.
Excellent.
Good brainstorming here.
Yep. And yes, what I'm going to do is I will get a chat log from this webinar, and a lot of those questions that have come in there, I will pull them out of there, and I will add them to you know, to just underneath the webinar recording, the archive recording. So you know, those questions are there that you all can take a look at. You know, because I know a lot of them, you might not be writing a lot of them down because the chat has been, you know, pretty active. So I should be getting a chat log for this, and it'll discuss, you know, I'll pull some of those questions out that you all have been, you know, popping up there. So yeah, so some great questions coming in. Bo's adding some great questions. How do fires impact pollinators or frogs? Who teaches your environment about rate of tree replacement and growth? So yes, there's lots of great questions. Anybody else want to jump in, you know, unmute your microphone and feel free. And as a reminder, remember that we also have another session tomorrow at it's 8 p.m. on December 4th, or actually 1 a.m. on December 5th UTC. So the 8 p.m. is, sorry, Eastern Standard Time, the East Coast of the United States. And then I think it's 1 a.m. Yeah, 1 a.m. Sorry, 1 a.m. on the December 5th UTC time. All right, I'm going to do a last call for any discussion or questions related to this open forum and the campaign. And remember, if you do something related to the campaign, mention the Trees Around the Globe Student Research Campaign in your research. And we are here, we have contact info. Peter put his up here. All of you know my info because you see the emails coming out for me, but I will pop my email into this chat here, into the chat so you have it. And there's Dorian's as well. So, we're here to help you out. We can't do unfortunately, we can't do the research project for you, but, if you want to pop, ideas, by us, some questions that you might be able to answer. And, once you start taking measurements, and that's one thing you have to do. You have to start taking measurements if you haven't already, and then build upon that, the measurement data that you collect, build upon that to come up with research questions. And remember, there's lots of data. There's literally millions of data points out there that you can potentially use in research projects on the GLOBE website.
Brian, once we are the member of the community and we've also prepared a presentation about that, then can we publish it? How do we can publish it? Like, it will be published, how?
So what you do is you submit it to the IVSS, International Virtual Student Symposia, that I showed earlier. That's the best way to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And I'm going to end the meeting now, which will stop the recording. And hopefully we may see some of you tomorrow.
Thank you so much.